"Daddy, please, you need to come home." Those were the first words out of my daughter Stacy's mouth when she Skyped me at my duty station in Afghanistan. Her voice trembled with urgency. "What's wrong, baby? Is it Mom?" I asked, already sensing that something was terribly wrong. "Dad." Even with the poor video quality, I could see tears streaming down her face. She's seeing another man." My heart sank. My wife of 18 years, Kathy, had always been the cornerstone of our family. She was so devoted to Stacy and me. How could this be happening? "Honey, how do you know that?" "Surely you're mistaken. She's out with him 2 or 3 nights a week. Sometimes she doesn't come home until 2 or 3 in the morning. This morning, she didn't come back until almost 7. "Dad, I'm scared." I swallowed hard, trying to suppress the bile rising in my throat. "Do you know who this man is, Stacy?" "I think his name is Donald something." "Donald Conley." "Yes, that's him." My stomach churned. Donald Conley was the mayor of our town, and Kathy had worked on his election campaign. It started to make sense, but I tried to convince myself there might be a reasonable explanation. "Are you sure, honey? I saw him once when he picked Mom up. He's tall, kind of skinny, with short black and gray hair. He drives a fancy car, sometimes even a limo." It all fit. Kathy had mentioned events related to the campaign, but why was she coming home so late? Something didn't add up. "I need you here, Daddy. Come home. Please," Stacy pleaded. "Honey, I'll see what I can do. But whatever you do, don't say anything to your mom." "I won't, Dad. But please hurry, before something really bad happens." "I'll do my best. I love you, Stacy." "I love you too, Dad. My name is Robert Crawford. I'm 42 years old, a design specialist for a large electronics firm, and a major in the National Guard. That's why I'm currently stationed in Afghanistan for a year-long assignment. I've been married to Kathy, the love of my life, for 18 years. Together, we have an amazing 15-year-old daughter, Stacy. Kathy is 40 but looks much younger. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever known. 5 feet 6 inches with a fantastic figure that somehow improved after giving birth to Stacy. Her dark brown hair falls to her shoulders, and her warm brown eyes sparkle when she smiles. A smile that used to come so naturally and frequently. I'd never had a single doubt about her loyalty, even when I was deployed. Our marriage was always solid, loving, and fulfilling in every way. So what went wrong? I had no idea. I filed the necessary paperwork for 30 days of emergency family leave. 26 hours later, I found myself at my hometown airport, renting a car and heading home. By the time I reached the neighborhood, it was Friday evening, and the mid-November sun had already set. The streetlights cast a dim, almost ominous glow on the houses around me. I parked half a block from my house and watched from a distance. Lights were on in the living room, the kitchen, and the upstairs master suite. From where I sat, I could see Kathy walking past the upstairs window a couple of times. It looked like she was getting ready to go out. I called Stacy's cell phone. She picked up after 3 rings, her voice soft and trembling. "Daddy, is that you?" "Yes, baby. Don't say anything, but I'm here, just half a block away." "Oh, Daddy, thank you." I could hear her voice break, and she started to cry. "Is your mom going out tonight?" I asked. "I think so. She's been in her room for over an hour." I heard the shower, and now I can hear her humming. Sounds like she's getting ready for something. "Yeah, I guess." Her voice dropped. "It makes me sick, Daddy. Why is she doing this to us?" "I don't know, Stacy, and your mom might not know either. Let's not judge her until we figure out what's really going on." "What are you going to do?" "I'm not sure yet. I'll follow her tonight and try to figure out what's happening." "Be careful, Daddy." Do you need to change clothes? No. I think my camo fatigues will stand out enough to create a little shock and awe when the time comes. Good luck, Daddy. I love you. I love you too, Stacy. And no matter what happens, you and I will always be together. At 7 o'clock, a black Mercedes pulled into my driveway. A tall, slender, well-dressed man climbed out of the car. He paused briefly to talk on his phone before the lights in the master suite went out. A moment later, Kathy stepped out onto the porch. She looked stunning, wearing a fitted dress that flattered her figure. My heart broke as I watched her glance back at the house, checking to make sure Stacy wasn't watching, before walking to her date with a radiant smile. Then she kissed him warmly on the mouth, and he helped her into the car. I clenched my jaw, trying to steady myself long enough to snap a photo of the kiss with my phone. My chest felt like it had been ripped apart, but I held it together as I started my car and followed them at a safe distance. Traffic was light, making it easy to keep them in sight without drawing attention to myself. They arrived at a high-end restaurant in the city. I parked across the street, watching as they walked inside, hand in hand, laughing like a couple who had no care in the world. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel. What was she doing? Why was this happening? I couldn't confront her, not yet. I needed more information. I needed to understand. Sitting alone in the car, I stared at the restaurant door, my thoughts a chaotic whirlwind of betrayal, confusion, and heartache. The woman I had loved for 18 years, the mother of my child, was out with another man. And Stacy, my sweet daughter, was home, scared and hurt. I didn't have any trouble staying unnoticed as I followed them. They drove across town and pulled into the parking lot of a recently built hotel. I parked a few spaces away and watched as they stepped out of the car. They walked close together, arms around each other, and I snapped another photo. The way they moved, the way they touched, it was obvious their affair had been going on for some time. They were too comfortable with each other, like a loving married couple out for a romantic date night. My chest tightened as I watched them enter the building. Once they were inside, I slipped on my camel hat and sunglasses and followed. The lobby was busy, but I scanned the space quickly and efficiently. I received the usual polite smiles and comments like, "Thank you for your service," which I acknowledged with a nod, all the while keeping my focus on the information board that displayed current hotel events. One stood out, the St. James Hospital Charity Ball. It was being held in the third-floor ballroom, and the faint sounds of live orchestral music were already drifting down into the lobby. Ignoring the elevators, which were shuttling well-dressed couples up to the event, I chose the stairs. I didn't want to draw unnecessary attention to myself, and my legs could use the stretch after spending so much time sitting on long flights. When I reached the third floor, I followed the sound of music until I found the ballroom. I walked past the entrance slowly, glancing inside. There they were, just inside the doorway. They looked and acted like the perfect couple, greeting friends and supporters with warm smiles and casual laughter. My wife even glanced toward me for a second but didn't recognize me. Why would she? As far as she knew, I was still 10,000 miles away, fighting sandstorms, flies, and the Taliban. My heart clenched when I noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding rings. I walked past the entrance and into the men's restroom. Sitting in a stall, I tried to process what I'd just seen. Couldn't wrap my head around it. For 18 years, I'd been certain my marriage to Kathy was as solid as a marriage could be. How blind I'd been. How stupid. Likely, this affair had been going on the entire time I was in Afghanistan, serving my country and honoring my duty, while my wife was here, dishonoring me and shattering our wedding vows. What's worse, they were flaunting their relationship in front of all those people. Didn't anyone know the woman draped all over the mayor was married to a deployed army officer? Or did no one care? I felt warm tears sting my eyes, but I wiped them away. There was no time for self-pity. I needed a plan. Right now, I had a much different enemy to face than the Taliban. I stayed in the bathroom stall for half an hour, giving the event plenty of time to settle into full swing before I emerged. I walked through the ballroom doors, unnoticed except for the young man at the entrance who saluted me and said, "Welcome, sir." My uniform had more clout than any ticket, and I offered him a polite nod in return. As I entered, the thought crossed my mind. It's a shame my wife and her lover don't have the same respect for me or the uniform I wear. It took me a few minutes to locate Kathy and the mayor. They were on the dance floor, swaying to a slow song. Her arms were around his neck, her head resting on his chest, while his hands settled possessively on her lower back. My stomach turned as I watched, but I forced myself to stay still. I managed to take several photos, even though every part of me wanted to storm the dance floor, punch him square in the face, and kick him until his guts were in his throat. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It might satisfy my anger for a moment, but it would land me in jail and only complicate things further. No, I needed absolute proof of their affair, something undeniable. Then, I'd figure out the best way to handle this betrayal. Not just to me but to our daughter and the vows we had taken. They danced another song before heading back to their table, arm in arm. Before sitting down, they shared an intimate kiss and a tender touch, completely oblivious to the fact that I was capturing every moment with my phone. It was more than enough for now. I quietly made my way out of the ballroom and into the hallway, finding a bench where I could watch the ballroom doors and elevators. As an army officer, I had learned the value of patience, and tonight it paid off. I waited nearly 2 hours as the event began to wind down and people slowly made their way out of the ballroom and toward the elevators. Eventually, Kathy and the mayor emerged. They stood just outside the doors, talking softly, their smiles warm and intimate. After a minute, they turned together and walked toward the bank of elevators. But instead of pressing the button to go down, they pressed the one that would take them up. That was strange. I was sitting just 15 feet away on a bench against the wall, wearing my camel fatigues and sunglasses, and they hadn't even noticed me. Or maybe they didn't care. Either way, the fact that they were heading up spoke volumes. My heart pounded, but I stayed rooted in place, waiting to see where this would go. My name was clearly displayed on the front of my uniform, making me stand out like a sore thumb among the tuxedos and ball gowns. As I leaned against the wall near the elevators, a few couples smiled or nodded at me, offering polite acknowledgments of my service. I nodded back, but my focus was elsewhere. My wife and her lover, so completely absorbed in each other, never even noticed me. When the elevator doors opened, they stepped in hand, and I watched as the car stopped on the 11th floor. I waited to see if the elevator would continue moving. It didn't. Instead, it descended back to the 3rd floor to pick up other guests heading down to the lobby. I took this as my cue to act. I approached the front desk and addressed the young woman behind it. "Excuse me, I know this is an unusual request, but I have an urgent message for Mayor Conley that I've been directed to deliver personally," I said, flashing my government ID. She looked uncertain, hesitating for a moment. "Sir, I'm really not supposed to divulge that information. Miss, if this wasn't urgent, do you really think I'd be here in uniform, delivering this message myself?" My tone was calm but firm, and she nodded nervously. After a quick glance at her computer, she replied, "He's in room 1114. "Thank you," I said, giving her a small nod before heading to the elevators. When I reached the 11th floor, I followed the signs to rooms 1101 through 1134. Walking past 1114, I glanced around to ensure no one else was in the hallway, then leaned in and pressed my ear against the door. Soft conversation was all I could hear, nothing incriminating, but it was enough to confirm they were inside. I moved further down the hall and found the stairwell. Knowing the door might lock behind me, I wedged my handkerchief between the latch and the frame, leaving it slightly ajar. I checked my watch. Midnight. Stacy had told me her mother typically returned home between 2 and 3 a.m., and once as late as 7 a.m., so I prepared for a long wait. My army training had taught me patience, and it was paying off once again. Through the small window in the stairwell door, I had a clear view of room 1114 and would be ready the moment they left. As I sat there, waiting, my mind was flooded with images I didn't want to see. I imagined her with him, their bodies tangled together, his hands on her in ways that were meant to be mine alone. My heart wasn't just broken. It felt like my entire life was spiraling into a dark abyss filled with pain, rejection, and humiliation. I tried to focus on Stacy, reminding myself I needed to hold it together for her sake. But the knowledge that my wife, the woman I loved and trusted with every fiber of my being, was giving herself to another man at that very moment overwhelmed me. Around 1:30 a.m., I stepped out of the stairwell and pressed my ear to their door again. This time, I heard faint moaning, followed by my wife's unmistakable voice, breathless and desperate. "Yes. Oh God, yes. Do me, Don. Do me hard like that. You're so good." Then came the scream. A scream I'd heard countless times before, one she always made when she climaxed with me. Tears streamed down my face as I staggered back to the stairwell, my chest heaving with anguish. I stayed there, slumped against the wall, waiting. I knew it wouldn't be much longer before they left their little love nest. At 2 a.m., I stepped out of the stairwell for the last time and positioned myself against the wall outside their room. My phone was set to record video and I was ready. 15 minutes later, I heard the chain being removed from the door, followed by the soft click of it opening. I hit record. They stepped out together. His arm was draped protectively around her shoulders, and she leaned into him, smiling. Kathy looked freshly scrubbed, her hair neat, her face glowing. Donald Conley looked smug, clearly pleased with himself. They shared a brief kiss before turning toward the elevators. "How did the screwing go, Kathy?" I asked, my voice calm but laced with cold fury. "It looks like you two had a great time." Kathy froze. Her eyes locked on me, and her face turned pale. Her hand flew to her chest as she cried out, "Oh, Bob! No. Oh God, please no. This can't be happening. You weren't supposed to see this." Her legs gave out, and she collapsed to her knees, sobbing. It took her lover a moment longer to register who I was. When he did, his expression shifted from confusion to alarm. "Hey, man, this isn't what it looks like," he stammered. "She was just helping me with my new campaign." "Yeah, I can see that," I replied, my voice steady. "Screwing her and destroying her marriage must be part of your new campaign strategy. I wonder how the voters will feel when they see the headlines about the mayor sleeping with an army officer's wife while he's overseas defending his country." "Wait a minute. There was no sex involved," he said quickly, turning to Kathy. "Tell him, Kathy." I laughed bitterly. "Don't play me for a fool, Mr. Mayor. I saw the kissing at my house, the dancing at the ball, and I heard everything through that door. Do me, Don. Do me hard. Sound familiar?" His face turned bright red, but I wasn't done. "Congratulations. You've won. She's all yours now. I'm sure you're both very proud of what you've done." Sneaking around behind my back while I was dodging bullets and sucking sand 10,000 miles away. "Cowards. Both of you." Kathy stared at me, stunned, her mouth opening and closing as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I turned my gaze to her one last time. "You weren't just my wife, Kathy. You were supposed to be my partner. My family. Stacy knows about this, by the way. I hope you're ready to explain to her why you chose him over us." My wife knelt in a heap on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, unable to look at me. "Don't bother coming home tonight, Kathy," I said coldly. "Spend the night with your lover. I'm going to comfort our daughter. On Monday, I'll file for divorce, right after I let the news media know what kind of mayor this city has running things. I have 30 days of emergency leave, so stay away until I go back. After that, you can decide how to carry on with the rest of your life." "Bob, please," I heard her whisper through her tears. "Please what, Kathy? Please forgive you for screwing another man the entire time I've been deployed? Maybe longer? Please don't tell our daughter what you've been doing? She already knows, Kathy. She's the one who called me and begged me to come home." Kathy gasped, her face crumbling further as the weight of my words hit her. I don't know why I did it." "I don't know either," I said, cutting her off. "But I hope you two are in love, because all you have now is each other." I turned toward the elevator and started walking away. "I'm sorry, Bob," she wailed after me. "Sorry for what, Kathy?" I asked, spinning around to face her. "Sorry I found out? Sorry I caught you in the act? Sorry I ruined your perfect little setup as the town's society queen? I've been watching you both since you left our house tonight. From the moment you climbed into his car to the moment you walked out of that room. I didn't see even a hint of remorse or regret on your face. Quite the opposite. You looked happier than I've seen you in years." I paused, my voice turning colder. "Have a good life, Kathy. Actually, scratch that. Eat shit and die. Both of you." I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby, leaving her sobbing on the floor. When I got home, Stacy was waiting for me, her face pale and red from crying. The moment she saw me, she ran into my arms and hugged me tightly. "Oh, Daddy, I've missed you so much. I'm so glad you're home." "I missed you too, baby. More than you can imagine." She pulled back slightly, looking up at me with tearful eyes. "Did you find them, Dad? Mom and the mayor?" "Yes, baby, I found them. And I'm sorry to say you were right. I don't think your mom will be coming home for a while." "I don't care, Daddy," she said bitterly, her voice trembling with anger. "She's ignored me almost every day since you left. Please, take me with you when you go." I sighed and held her close. "Honey, I wish I could, but I have to go back to Afghanistan in a month. As much as I want you with me, you have to stay here." "I can't stay with her, Dad. I hate her," she said, breaking down into tears. "No, Stacy. No matter what your mom has done to me or to our marriage, she's still your mother." "She doesn't love me, Dad," she sobbed, wrapping her arms around me tightly. I held her while she cried, my heart breaking for her. "I know this is hard, baby, but we'll get through it together. I promise." After some time, I convinced her to go to bed. I secured the house, locking all the doors and setting the chains, just in case Kathy decided to come back. I didn't know if she and her lover had used any of our bedrooms, but I didn't want to take the chance. I slept on the couch that night, even though I wasn't entirely sure it hadn't been a part of their rendezvous either. Sleep came in short, restless bursts. 45 minutes here, half an hour there. As I lay awake thinking about how to handle things when Kathy eventually came to collect her belongings. I could have been the bigger person and gotten a hotel room, leaving the house to her. But I couldn't find it in my heart to be that generous. She was the one who had destroyed our marriage, so she could suffer the inconvenience of being displaced from her home for the next 30 days. Besides, I was sure her lover would be happy to take her in. They'd been acting like a married couple, now they could live like one. Consider it a trial marriage. The next morning, Stacy and I both slept in, though not peacefully. I got up first, made some coffee, and cooked scrambled eggs and toast for us. When Stacy finally emerged from her room, we sat together at the table, making small talk as we ate. It was a moment of normalcy in the chaos that had taken over our lives. As we finished, the phone rang. Stacy and I exchanged a glance before she got up to answer it. "Hello?" "Oh, hello, Mom." Her tone immediately turned icy. "Yes, he's here, but no, I don't think he wants to talk to you." "Why would he?" There was a long pause as she listened, her expression growing angrier by the second. "Mom, really? Dad and I both find it hard to believe that you're sorry. This wasn't a mistake. It's not like you slipped up and kissed the guy once. You've been having an affair ever since Dad deployed." Another pause, longer this time. Stacy's voice turned sharp. "Yes, I was the one who told Dad to come home." She paused again, her brow furrowing. "Mom, you've ignored me for months. The only thing you've cared about, the only thing that's mattered to you, is your affair with Donald Conley." Another long pause. Her expression hardened. "Mom, please use your brain. Why would I tell Dad not to hurt me? That man needs to be hurt, and hurt badly, for what he's done." "Sorry, Mom, but it's not going to happen." She hung up the phone and turned to me, her face filled with frustration and sadness. "She seems scared, Dad. Like she doesn't understand what's happening. It's like she thinks cheating on you is no big deal, and she can't figure out why you don't want her to come home." "No big deal," I repeated, shaking my head. "Well, I promise you this. By the time I'm done with the two of them, she'll understand exactly what she's done and just how many people she's hurt by her actions." Stacy nodded, her face softening as she sat back down beside me. We didn't need to say anything else. For now, we had each other, and that was enough. The house was quiet for most of the day. I tried to keep my mind off what Kathy might be doing with her lover, and Stacy did her best to keep me distracted by talking to me about everything and anything. We eventually got around to discussing what would be best for her when I returned to Afghanistan. I thought she'd be happy staying at home, going to her school, and being with her friends. But Stacy was afraid her friends would turn against her once they learned about the terrible things her mother had done. I assured her that real friends would stand by her, but she wasn't convinced. We finally settled things when I promised to call my mom and ask if Stacy could stay with her until my deployment ended, hopefully in another 5 or 6 months. Stacy seemed relieved by this plan, though it didn't erase the pain she was carrying. Late in the afternoon, the phone rang again. It was Kathy. I answered, but as soon as I heard her say, "Bob, oh Bob, please give me a chance to explain," I passed the phone to Stacy without a word. "What, Mom?" Stacy's voice was hard and cold as she held the phone slightly away from her ear, so I could hear what Kathy was saying. "Stacy, I need to talk to your dad." "I told you, Mom. He doesn't want to talk to you." "But I need to explain." "Explain what, Mom? What can you possibly tell Dad that will explain what you and Donald Conley have been doing for the past 6 months?" "It's not what you think, Stacy." "Yes, Mom, it is exactly what Dad and I think. You've turned your back on both of us in the worst way a woman can turn her back on her family. Shame on you, Mom. Shame on you." Stacy was practically yelling now, and I could hear Kathy crying on the other end. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Stacy." "Well, you did, Mom. You hurt people who loved you more than anything in the world. You ripped the heart out of the one man who would have died for you. I hope you're proud of yourself, Mom. I hope your sordid affair was worth it, because it cost you your family. Whatever that's worth to you." "Oh, please, Stacy. I love you and your dad." "Yeah, right, Mom. And pigs fly. If you love us, you have a really strange way of showing it. And I hate to think what you'd do if you hated us. Now, do you need something? Or can I go back to spending time with my dad?" There was silence except for the sound of Kathy crying. Finally, she said quietly, "I need some things. I need clothes and I need my pills. Stacy's voice dripped with contempt. What pills, Mom? My birth control pills. Oh, of course. How silly of me. You definitely can't go without those, right? We wouldn't want you carrying the mayor's bastard child. That might really cramp your style. Huh? Hard to neck on the dance floor when you're fat and pregnant. There was a long pause before Stacy added, Don't worry. I'll tell Dad. And I'm sure between the two of us, we can pack up your clothes, your birth control pills, and your makeup too. Stacy. Oh, right, Mom. Of course. As the town's society queen, you've got to keep looking beautiful for His Royal Highness, the mayor, and your adoring public. Everything will be out at the curb by 6 o'clock tonight, so you can just drive by and pick it up. Have a nice night, Mom. Stacy slammed the phone down and immediately started crying. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly. You were kind of hard on your mom, Stacy, I said gently. I know, she hiccuped, her voice trembling. I'm not proud of it, but I'm so angry. Couldn't help it. I just had to let it out. I know, baby. I know. I kissed the top of her head. We'll get through this, Stacy. We won't let them win. I hugged her again, then left her to calm down while I went to gather the things her mother had requested. Once that was done, I headed to my office to think. There were so many things I needed to do in the next few days, and my army training kicked in, allowing me to compartmentalize and focus on the tasks at hand. This was a battle, and I was going to treat it as one. The usual logistical stuff was easy. Finding a good divorce lawyer, canceling our joint credit cards, opening new accounts in my name and Stacy's, changing the beneficiaries on my life insurance and retirement plans to Stacy, and moving half the money from our checking and savings accounts into accounts only accessible to the two of us. The harder part was figuring out how to deal with Mayor Conley. He had to be punished, not just for what he'd done to me, but for what he'd done to my family. And that punishment needed to be public and absolute. He needed to be exposed as the cowardly, wife-stealing scumbag he truly was. At 8 o'clock that evening, the answer to part of that problem came in the form of a phone call. I picked up on the second ring. Crawford Residence, I said curtly. Robert Crawford? The voice on the other end was unfamiliar. That's right. Major Robert Crawford? I hesitated for a moment before answering. Yes, that's correct. Major Crawford, my name is Ryan Sims. I'm a city councilman here and a friend of Mayor Conley. I was wondering if I could talk to you about this little misunderstanding involving you, your wife, and the mayor last night. The voice on the phone continued. Little misunderstanding? Is that the city's official spin on my wife and Donald Conley's sex scandal at the Ritz until 2 a.m. this morning? I asked, my voice cold. Now, there's no need for that kind of language, the man said smoothly. We're just talking about a little late-night party between two consenting adults who might have had a bit too much to drink and got carried away. I'm sure if we just talk about it, we can straighten everything out. There's nothing to talk about. Your Mayor Conley has been screwing my wife for the past 6 months while I've been in Afghanistan. And last night, I caught them. There was a pause before the man responded, his tone calculated. I understand how troubling this is for you, Major, but I'm hoping we can find a way to work through this, for everyone's sake. Everyone? My only concern is for my daughter. The rest of you can go straight to hell. I'm sorry you feel that way, Major. The mayor is a powerful man in this community, and anything that might drag him down or make him look bad could result in, well, let's just say negative consequences for whoever causes it. I stiffened. Are you threatening me? I'm just telling it like it is, Major. I'd hate to see anything happen to you or anyone you care about. Letting out a slow breath, I leaned back in my chair and made sure my voice was steady and lethal. Let me tell you something, Councilman, and I strongly suggest you listen carefully. I've spent the last 6 months facing the Taliban, meeting them at every turn, and filling their lives with pain and suffering. Don't for a second think I'll back down from a fight with a tin horn, wife-stealing scumbag of a mayor from a town that barely rates a dot on the state map. You and your powerful friend have no idea what kind of adversary you're dealing with. I don't give a damn how much clout you think you have. If you take me on, you're messing with the devil. I paused to let the words sink in. That's something my soon-to-be ex-wife forgot to mention before she got involved with Conley. You might have money and influence, Councilman, but I have every man and woman within 100 miles who has ever served in the United States Armed Forces. You see, we don't take kindly to men who exploit a soldier's wife while he's overseas risking his life for his country. In fact, we loathe and detest them. There was silence on the line, so I added, "Here's some advice, Councilman Sims. Remove yourself from this situation and get as far away from Conley as you can. Because if you don't, you might just find yourself scorched by the fire that's about to rain down on your good friend." The councilman cleared his throat nervously. "Major, surely there's an amount of money, let's say a large amount, that could change hands and smooth over this unfortunate incident. Something to make things right?" I almost laughed. "There aren't any hurt feelings to smooth over here, Councilman. There's just cold, damning rage. And let me be clear, there isn't enough money in Fort Knox to make this go away. The only way this ends to my satisfaction is seeing Conley and my wife feel the full weight of the pain they've caused my daughter and me. You can pass that message along to both of them. Tell them to get all the sex they can now because soon they may not feel like doing it anymore, at least not with each other." The councilman sounded increasingly desperate. "Major, listen. When this gets out, it's going to blow up in ways you can't imagine. A lot of heads are going to roll. There must be some way we can make this disappear. If you're serious about that, it starts with Conley publicly admitting he's been having an affair with an Army officer's wife while that officer was deployed overseas. Then he can follow it up by apologizing, stepping down as mayor, and slinking off into obscurity. And hey, he can even claim the booby prize and take my cheating wife along with him. But nothing short of that will stop me from publicly humiliating him and bringing him to his knees." The line was silent for several seconds. Then the councilman spoke, his tone grim. "Damn, you're really serious about this, aren't you?" "As serious as I've ever been about anything in my life," I replied. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to fix dinner for my daughter." I hung up the phone without waiting for a response. Stacy walked in from the garage a few moments later. "I put Mom's clothes and stuff out by the curb," she said. "Someone in a black Mercedes picked it up. Well, for your mom's sake, let's hope Conley sent them. Otherwise, there's about to be some mighty nice clothes for sale at Goodwill," I said with a small smile. Stacy smirked. "I'm not sure what Goodwill would do with her birth control pills." I chuckled. "Fair point. Thanks for handling that." Stacy nodded but looked hesitant. "You know, you're going to have to talk to her eventually." "I know," I said quietly. "I will, when I'm ready, and when the time is right." The rest of the weekend passed without incident. Stacy helped me with the laundry while I spent time working on my plan to bring down Mayor Conley. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. I called a guy I knew at the local paper, John Foster, and arranged to meet him for coffee at Denny's. John was a good guy, a reputable reporter, and a former sergeant in my National Guard company a few years back. He arrived promptly, gave me a firm handshake, and sat across from me. "What can I do for you, Major?" he asked, curious. "John, I've got some information for you. What you choose to do with it is up to you. It may come across as self-serving, and in a way it is." I began. "As you know, our guard company has been deployed to Afghanistan for the past 6 months." John nodded. "Of course. Well, what you may not know is that, during that time, Donald Conley has been carrying on a rather public affair with the wife of one of our soldiers. John raised an eyebrow. What's the soldier's name, Bob? I'd rather not say, John, unless it becomes absolutely necessary. If I were the one being humiliated by a slimeball like Conley, I wouldn't want my name out there. He leaned back in his chair, frowning. I've heard some rumors. The word on the street is that the woman is separated from her husband and going through a divorce. I guarantee you that's not the truth, I said firmly. The husband had no idea about the affair until a week ago. There was no separation except for the war and no divorce. At least not yet. John nodded slowly. I understand, Major, but I can't just publish accusations against the mayor of this town without solid evidence. Do you have proof? I do. I pulled out my phone and showed him the pictures and video I had taken. His face hardened as he scrolled through the files. Of course, I added. I'd appreciate it if the woman's face was blurred a little. John shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Bob, are you sure you want to go through with this? You know the truth is going to come out eventually. I shook my head, sadness washing over me. I know, John, but I'll just have to deal with the shame. It's not like I was aware of it while it was happening. While Conley was screwing my wife, I was 10,000 miles away, ducking bullets in that miserable sandbox. The real shame, I continued, my voice hardening, is on Conley. You're one of us, John. You know how much of a breach of trust it is to take advantage of a soldier's wife while he's overseas, in harm's way. John nodded, his expression somber. I get it, Major. Let me see what I can do. We talked for a little longer, reminiscing about some of the guys from our company, especially the 3 who gave their lives during the deployment. I transferred the photos and video to his phone, shook his hand, and thanked him for his time. Then we went our separate ways. My next step was finding a good divorce lawyer. After doing some research online and checking reviews, I settled on one who seemed promising. R.J. Collins, ESQ. I scheduled an appointment for that afternoon, and when I arrived at her downtown office, I was surprised to learn that R.J. stood for Rebecca Joy. She was a tomboyish woman in her 50s, with graying hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She got right to the point. Major Crawford, what can I do for you? I need a divorce, I said bluntly. And I can tell you up front, it's not going to be a pleasant one. She rolled her eyes. There's no such thing as a pleasant divorce, Major. But I'll bite. What makes yours so unpleasant? Because, I said, leaning forward. While I've been in Afghanistan for the past 6 months, the mayor of this little town has been screwing my wife on a regular basis. Her eyes widened in shock, and she dropped the pen she was holding. Wait, you mean Conley? I nodded. Yes. Well, she said, straightening her posture. You have my undivided attention. For the next half hour, I told her everything, answering her questions and clarifying details as she took notes. When we got to the topic of Stacy, she asked, Your daughter, she's 15, right? Is she your only child? Yes. How does she feel about all of this? She hates it. It's tearing her apart. She doesn't want to stay with her mother when I go back to Afghanistan. Well, she's old enough that the court will take her desires into account, Rebecca said thoughtfully. Since she can't go with you, is there another option besides her mother? My mom, I said. I'll call her to see if she can take Stacy until my deployment ends. I'm sure she'd love to have her granddaughter stay with her for a while. Rebecca nodded. That sounds like a solid plan. We spent the rest of the hour discussing our finances and property. Rebecca advised me to talk to Kathy to see if there was any chance we could reconcile, but I told her there wasn't. If you'd seen the way they looked at each other, you'd understand why. There's no way Kathy and I can put this behind us. I need those papers ready to serve as soon as possible. Another week went by. During that time, Kathy called the house 5 times. Each time, she begged to talk to me, and each time, I told her I would let her know where and when, but kept the conversations brief. Her calls didn't faze me anymore. I was focused on the next steps. My plan was in motion, and the pieces were falling into place. Kathy and Conley thought they could destroy my family and walk away unscathed. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On Friday, my attorney informed me that the divorce papers were ready to be served. She just needed to know when and where. I told her I'd invite Kathy to the house the following Monday at 2 p.m., while Stacy was at school, and she could be served then. I called Kathy on her cell and told her I wanted to meet with her on Monday at 2 at the house. She tried to keep me on the line, launching into what was clearly a rehearsed explanation for her behavior, but I cut her off. "You'll have all the time you need to explain when we meet on Monday," I said before hanging up. On Monday, Kathy arrived a few minutes early. We sat down at the kitchen table. Seeing her again made my heart ache. She looked beautiful, too beautiful. It was a cruel reminder of the woman I'd once loved, the woman I thought I knew. "Coffee?" I offered. "No, just water, please." I poured her a glass and set it in front of her. Then, I leaned back in my chair. "I know you want to explain some things, and I'll give you the chance to do that." "Thank you, Bob," she said softly. "But," I continued, cutting her off, "before you start, I need to tell you something. In a little while, someone will arrive to serve you with divorce papers." Her face went pale. "Why, Bob? I don't want this. I didn't want you to have a 6-month affair with Donald Conley while I was fighting a war either," I said, my tone icy. "But here we are." "Bob, please," she pleaded. "If you'll just hear me out, you'll see why this happened. Maybe we can work past it." I nodded. "Go ahead. Talk." She took a deep breath and began. "You know, I worked on Donald's election campaign. We spent a lot of time together, functions, precinct walks, and we became friends. After you deployed, I was lonely, depressed. Donald took me out to lunch and let me talk to him. He helped me cope with the pain of missing you." I clenched my jaw but said nothing, letting her continue. "Then one night, he asked me to attend a dinner event with him. He said there would be influential couples there and that it might be best if I used my maiden name and left my wedding rings at home, to avoid rumors. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now, I see that taking my rings off was a mistake." "When did the sex start?" I interrupted, my voice sharp. She looked down at her hands. "Not right away. That night we danced closely. When he took me home, he kissed me goodnight. And you let him." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I was lonely, Bob. I just spent a romantic evening with a handsome man who made me feel like a princess." "He treated you like a princess while your husband was fighting a war," I said bitterly. "And that gave you the right to disrespect me?" "No, it didn't," she admitted, shaking her head. "But I was confused. You were so far away, and I missed you so much. I don't know. He made me feel good." I nodded, urging her to go on. "We went out to dinner a couple of times a week after that, and to more and more events. I was starting to have so much fun with him that it made me miss you less." "The sex," I prompted. She looked back down at her hands. "You'd been gone about a month. Donald and I were going out 2 or 3 times a week. One night, after a romantic dinner, he asked me to go home with him. And you did." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I did. I felt horrible afterward. I actually got sick to my stomach and made him take me home. I told him I couldn't see him anymore, that I loved my husband and couldn't believe I'd been unfaithful to you while you were fighting a war." "But you changed your mind," I said flatly. She nodded again, her voice breaking. He left me alone for several days, then called me. He told me how much he missed me and said he just wanted to see me as a friend. He promised he'd never put me in a compromising position again. And you believed him? Yes. That weekend, he took me to a party at one of his friends' homes on the Bluffs. It was an intimate gathering, 5 or 6 couples, all very important people. During the evening, the wife of a prominent doctor asked me how I'd managed to capture the heart of the town's most eligible bachelor. Caught me off guard, and I panicked. I told her I was separated from my husband and getting a divorce. I stared at her, disgusted. And in a town this size, that information spread like wildfire. She nodded miserably. It did, and I felt trapped. Stacy was spending the weekend at a horse camp with her friends, and I stayed with Donald. And the rest is history, I finished for her. Yes, she whispered. Bob, I'm heartbroken over what I've done to you and Stacy. It's the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and I'd give anything to undo it. But you can't, I said, my voice cold and unfeeling. No, I can't, she admitted. Do you love him? She hesitated. I don't know if I love him. I like him a lot. We have fun together. Sex can be fun, I said bitterly. Is he a better lover than me? Her face flushed. No, I don't know. It's different. Have you been staying with him since I caught you at the hotel? Yes. And you're still having sex with him? She didn't answer, but the look on her face was all the confirmation I needed. I leaned back in my chair, the last remnants of love I'd once felt for her crumbling into ash. I'm sorry, Bob, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm sure you are, I replied coldly, but not as sorry as you're going to be. Are you going to marry him? I asked. Kathy hesitated. I don't know. We've talked about it. The doorbell rang. I think that's for you, Kathy, I said evenly. She got up slowly and walked to the door. A man stood on the porch holding a manila envelope. Are you Kathy Crawford? He asked. She nodded. Yes. You've been served, he said, handing her the envelope before turning and leaving. For the longest time, Kathy just stood there in the doorway, staring out at nothing, the envelope hanging limply in her hands. When she finally closed the door and turned around, I saw that she was crying. So it's really over between us, Bob? She asked, her voice trembling. Yes, Kathy, I replied firmly. It's really over. You made sure of that. But I love you so much, she pleaded. No, I said, shaking my head. You loved the life we had, but you threw it away. Now you get to go find another life. What about Stacy? She asked, tears streaming down her face. She wants to go stay with my mom until my deployment ends. Kathy broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Oh God, what have I done? The following day, the local newspaper ran a front-page story with a banner headline that read, Who is the mystery married woman coming out of a hotel room with Mayor Conley? Beneath the headline was a photo of Kathy and the mayor kissing as they exited room 1114. The caption read, Does her army husband, serving in Afghanistan, know what's going on? The accompanying article detailed the charity event they had attended together and noted that hotel records showed the mayor had booked the room for the night. It also reported rumors that the two had been meeting regularly for 6 months while the woman's husband was deployed in Afghanistan. The paper justified running the story, stating that it was their editorial duty to bring it to light due to the mayor's prominent position and the nature of the offense against the soldier serving overseas. The fallout was immediate. Within minutes of the newspaper hitting people's doorsteps, the dust hit the fan. The mayor's office went into full damage control mode, issuing a statement that the story was a complete fabrication and that Mayor Conley would never do anything to jeopardize anyone's marriage. let alone the marriage of a soldier serving his country overseas. They claimed the photo was an obvious fake and accused unnamed, sinister individuals of conspiring against the mayor. Conley announced he would be holding a press conference that afternoon to set the record straight. It all sounded convincing until people started talking. Over the past 6 months, too many people had seen Conley and Kathy together. They had been careless, openly affectionate in public. One by one, as friends and supporters distanced themselves from him, anonymous tips flooded the newspaper from people who claimed they had witnessed the affair firsthand. Outrage grew as more people learned the woman's husband had been deployed in Afghanistan during the affair. That afternoon, Mayor Conley held his press conference. None of his allies on the city council stood by him. The only people present were his staff, and even half of them were conspicuously absent. Newspapers and TV stations crowded the room, cameras rolling as the mayor addressed the scandal. Conley expressed his horror at being accused of such an unthinkable act. He assured everyone that he and the woman in question were merely acquaintances and had never done anything to bring shame upon themselves or the woman's husband. His speech was polished and full of feigned outrage. And then Kathy showed up. Halfway through his carefully scripted speech, Kathy pushed her way through the onlookers to the microphone. Conley froze, his face twisting into a mixture of anger and panic. "My name is Kathy Crawford," she announced, her voice shaking. "I am the wife of Army Major Robert Crawford, and for the past 6 months, I have been having an affair with Mayor Conley." The room fell into stunned silence. Conley tried to grab her arm and shove her aside. "I don't know this woman," he shouted. "She's lying." Kathy turned to face him, her voice rising. "Yes, you do know me, you son of a—" She stopped herself, tears streaming down her face. "And it's time we both admitted what rotten shits we really are. I am so ashamed of what I've done to my husband that I want to die. But I will not stand here and let you lie about it." She turned back to the cameras. "Robert, you knew I was married. You knew my husband was in Afghanistan. And still you pursued me. I was such an idiot to listen to you. And now, I've embarrassed and lost the only man who has ever loved me." Her voice cracked as she addressed the TV cameras directly. "I am so ashamed and heartbroken, and I will be sorry for the rest of my life. I'm sorry, Bob. I love you." With that, she pushed through the crowd and left the room, leaving the reporters shouting questions at the stunned mayor. Conley, his face red with rage and humiliation, stormed back into City Hall without answering a single question. The next day, the president of the city council announced that Mayor Conley had resigned from office. The council would govern the city until a special election could be held. I should have felt satisfaction. After all, my plan had worked. Conley's political career was in ruins, and his reputation was irreparably damaged. But all I felt was a deep, hollow emptiness. I spent as much time as I could with Stacy during the remainder of my leave. She was my anchor, the only thing keeping me from being completely swallowed by the loneliness. Before I returned to Afghanistan, I allowed Kathy to move some of her belongings back into the house, for Stacy's sake. But Stacy and I didn't stay. We packed up and went to my mother's home, 60 miles away. I enrolled Stacy in a new school and promised her that I'd be back to get her as soon as my deployment was over. She hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes, and I knew that leaving her behind would be one of the hardest things I'd ever have to do. The next week, I was on a plane back to Afghanistan. My heart was heavy with anger that burned hot enough to keep me focused. I planned on taking out every ounce of it on the enemy lurking in the desert. What happened to Kathy? A few weeks after I left, she moved in with Conley. The two of them left town shortly afterward, retreating from the public shame and scandal that had consumed them. I didn't care enough to keep track of where they went or what became of them. Kathy was a chapter of my life I didn't plan on revisiting. Did I come back from Afghanistan? Yes, but not without scars. During an ambush late in my deployment, I was critically injured and lost my left leg. The experience changed my life in more ways than I could have imagined. Recovery was brutal, both physically and emotionally, but I fought through it for Stacy. I owed her that much. Today, I work as a special design consultant for a large electronics firm, using my skills to build a better future for us. Stacy is my rock, my reason to keep pushing forward. We live together, and while life has its challenges, we've built something strong. Just the two of us. Occasionally, I speak at events and to groups about the challenges soldiers face when serving abroad. The pain of betrayal, the scars of war, and the fight to rebuild my life have taught me more about resilience than I ever thought possible. I'm not the man I once was, but I'm still standing. For Stacy and for myself. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.